Call the budget meeting to order. There are no sign-ups for today. I think we have one transfer, Ms. Phoebe.
Yes, ma'am. We have one transfer this evening requesting a vehicle to be transferred from Sheriff's Department. We have a utility vehicle that has been identified in surplus, and this is just changing this over to the Public Safety Department to be used at the Arrington Volunteer Fire Department.
Does anybody have any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor?
No, you need a motion.
Oh, that's right. Megan's not here to do my motion. That means you, David.
Motion.
I'll second. Okay. Any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody against? Passes 4-0. And the next is the education budget. How do we want to do that, Mayor? Since we've already, this is the second, do you want to go over, again?
Table.
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. We'll speak to it. Of course, we had that joint meeting with the Education Committee. There's really not been any significant change from that time. A couple of items on the funding side that we're aware of. First, Senator Johnson let us know that he was going to try to find some additional funding in this current budget year to mitigate the fiscal capacity indicator. He did that. We actually had our board approve that the receipt of that money, so we actually got it this budget year. But that was already mentioned the last time we had that joint meeting. We mentioned to you that we had a gap of about $12 million. We started at about 16, and that $4 million from the state dropped us to 12. So that's one item for you. Just as a reminder also, we're projecting a 0.44% decrease in our total student population. And our budget that we've presented to you has a reduction in just a little over 34 positions, if I'm not mistaken, 34.6 positions as a result of that. So from a ratio standpoint, we're actually dropping the staffing a little bit more than that 0.44%, but it's because we went through every school, every position, and make sure that we towed the line on our position control report for staffing purposes. I mentioned to you all months ago, before we actually started our detailed budget work from Mayor Anderson, mentioned that he was going to propose asking for a 4% raise for county government employees, that we projected we would not be able to afford that without some additional funding from county government, and that's where we are. We're at that about $12 million gap. Related to that, because we did get that additional funding, we do have a role for our teachers on our pay chart that we sent to you a few weeks ago. And some of our classified positions, some of the trades have a role on every 5-year scale. And we do have within this existing budget sufficient funds for that role. But if we are to do a pay increase commensurate with what county administration plans as opposed to the county commission, we will need that extra funding. Final piece related to that, I've mentioned it before, but just as a reminder, because I want to make sure our staff knows, we've given a draft pay increase plan to our school board. We intend to give them a final draft in May. If we do receive that funding, we don't propose a 4% pay increase for everyone. We're working on market needs, and that includes a proposal to increase some of our supplements for athletics and the arts, and then distribute that based on some market analysis we've done in the Middle Tennessee region. Certainly open to any questions that you all may have, but again, our proposed budget hasn't changed any since we presented it to you a month or so ago.
I have some questions. So what percentage are you talking about increasing for the teachers?
Well, number one, our budget on the revenue side is based on the equivalent of that 4%. Mm-hmm. Our proposal that we've given to the board as a draft proposal puts an emphasis on teacher pay. And so we are looking at minimum 4% for teachers, but because of the pay chart, some teachers, if our proposal is funded, will actually get a more than 4%. Our teachers, from a market standpoint, are in a bigger challenge than most of our other positions. Relative to our neighbors, we pay fairly well for administrative positions, and that's intentional because of leadership. We actually pay pretty well in the trades compared to our competitors in the school system as well. Now, compared to private, the reality is we're not anywhere near. So we're looking at 4+ for teachers, but we're not doing it as a flat amount. We've talked to the WCEA, the Education Association. We have an obligation to talk to them. We've talked to them about each position and the needs. So, Rachel, I'm trying to visualize that chart. I don't think any of them are less than 4%, but it's possible something might theoretically be at like 3.9 or something like that based on how the cells are structured. I'm sorry, what?
The higher
The
end
higher you know which one.
that's off the chart.
They will be getting.
Okay, so as an example, our pay chart stops at line 21. So if a teacher comes to us with more experience than that, they may have built up a higher pay elsewhere, and we can't compete. So we do expect some of those to be addressed a little bit.
Well, I have a question, to get the voucher passed, the governor, he promised the teachers all these bonuses. Are y'all including that bonus as revenue, or are they getting their raises plus that bonus?
No, ma'am, we are not including that. Now, the governor's proposal in the legislation included that as a hanger-on to that voucher or ESA bill. We are not factoring that into our operational budget. What we have heard from the state is certain teachers, most teachers, who are employed this year full-time, spending more than half of their time in direct instruction to students, are scheduled to get that $2,000 gross pay bonus in next year's fiscal year. So we've got to upload the data to the state for the people, and then we expect to get that in the next fiscal year, and then retroactively give them that bonus. Some of them will be retirees, and if for those new teachers with zero experience, we're going to be hiring for the first time this year, they will not receive that.
So they're gonna send the money to you and then you distribute it?
That's correct.
And that is for 27-20, that's for 26-27.
Well, no, it's for
24, 25.
It's for the employee.
Retro based off this year.
That's correct. It's going to be in the 25-26 budget year for those teachers employed during the 24-25.
And did that legislation talk about supplanting?
I don't know the answer to that. But they did treat it as a one-time
That's a
bonus.
one-time bonus.
So I have a couple of questions. How did the education committee vote last night? I was not able to be there.
And on this budget?
I can speak for them. Well, I will speak for them even though I shouldn't. They voted on our monthly items, but did not vote on the budget as a whole.
And was there a reason they did not vote?
It was not brought up.
Was any of our county commissioners there last night?
Yeah, it wasn't on the agenda last night. We just did the capital expenses last night.
No,
I'm
it was
not on the
on,
committee, but I was here.
it was on there. It was part of the agenda, that was the whole purpose.
Yeah, well, we just decided not to discuss it, so. John A. Allen.
Any more questions, ma'am?
We went 15 minutes.
So my follow-up question, if I could, to Phoebe, hearing what Superintendent has said, how many pennies will it take to make their budget work?
Approximately 7 pennies to break even. And then, of course, with breaking even, we're not giving them any extra money for growth for next year.
And that would leave you with a fund balance of 3%, Rachel?
Correct.
which is approximately.
20 million.
Well, I have another couple of questions, of course. It's my understanding that the Board of Education voted to not do student fees this year? And how much money are we talking about of revenue?
So, not exactly, so let me speak to that. So the state has an allowance for a fee structure for classes and extracurriculars. They call the class fees, even though technically they're not because they're voluntary. So they're not required. So what the board and ultimately voted on is to remove the terminology fees from that. We've had discussions about it for years, and we posted messages on our website saying these are not required, even though the state calls them fees, are not required for in-class, because we are obligated to provide a free education during class time. So our plan this year is to still give the notice to families about the needs in each class. For example, chemistry is asking for blank amount for additional materials, et cetera, and make a request for a donation. So we're changing the terminology. There was discussion at the board level, might this increase because some might give more, or might it go down? And the answer is we don't know. We're going to take a shot at it.
How much is it now that we get in revenue from that?
In total, right at 1.2 million.
1.2, so if we're gonna look at it next year, it goes down.
Yeah, we expect you to.
Just the wording is all you're saying, but they're still being asked to
We're
give.
still asking, and we're still brainstorming over, when it's a fee, we know that it can't be written off someone's taxes. And also, and I'm not a tax expert, so I'm speaking generally, if it's something someone is paying for their own child, generally speaking, it's just an expense and it can't be written off. But if it's a donation to the schools, their tax professional may be able to treat it as a tax write-off. So we're hoping that we can structure it in such a way that they'll actually have that opportunity rather than paying just for their individual child.
Maybe get more money.
Maybe, yeah.
And then the other thing is, which I brought up last time, I'll let y'all know in a minute, I'm got all these questions, is the textbook, 5 million that the board voted for one that none of the teachers wanted. What's the status of that?
We've ordered the elementary school textbooks, elementary and middle school textbooks. And remember, it's the full-blown adoption K through 12. I know the cost of those off the top of my head is about 3.9 million for the K-8. We don't have the numbers yet for the high school textbooks. So we had included that 5 million in our budget. It'll be very, very close. I don't know on one side or the other from our budget where it'll land.
I guess I'm zeroing in on the one book that there was so many issues about that the teachers are so upset about. That they're the one teaching it and the school board members saying what they think it should be. How much is that book?
Well, it's the K-8 science program, and that's that.
The whole program?
Yeah, yes ma'am, it is the selection for K-8. So we had it broken up by grade bands. And there were various recommendations from the teachers based on those grade bands, but the K-8 STEM Scopes purchase is that science materials that the state approved. It's one of the 4 basic collections that the state textbook commission approved. That's that 3.9 million for K-8.
And y'all have already ordered them.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, because I'd be real tempted to cut that from the budget.
It's in our current year's budget.
I know,
not
that's what
next
you
year's.
said last time.
Yeah.
Or you could cut this year's budget, but then you'd suffer somewhere else. I guess I wish there was someone here to explain why they did that. When you see the teacher, I mean, I've heard so many teachers upset about this. You know, they talk about supporting the teachers. This wasn't supporting them much, I felt like. But anyway, y'all got questions?
I just had a couple questions. William Batista, because I know that, and I read the letter that Rachel put on there. So we actually lost 2.197 million, I think is the number I saw. Is that correct? Okay. So So we lost money in our TISA funding, but I guess 4 million came in, so really the net loss was really 1.8 million, or actually the gain is 1.8.
And that's just an estimate at this point, because we still don't have the fiscal capacity numbers. We won't have that until May, so the potential is, it is going to change. I feel confident one way or the other, but the potential is it could end up being more.
So we receive the TISA estimate from the state in May of each year. That's their State Department of Ed, that's their obligation. We do project that that gap will widen. The TISA fiscal capacity indicator will widen even further. That's Rachel's projection.
I can give you, for instance, we got our letter this afternoon.
Yeah, this afternoon.
An hour ago, and the difference in the estimate from last month to this month is about $166,000 less. And it is because the overall pool for funding that gets split 70-30 between the state and the local LEAs has gotten bigger. And since our fiscal capacity is large, our portion is more. So therefore, every time it gets bigger, the total gets bigger. This coming to us directly goes down a little bit. So that's where it was, with no change to fiscal capacity, just in overall.
I know you have no control over that. I know you guys do a lot of work on the budget and the preparation, but it's just really a frustration point for me because it does not take into consideration cost of living
Yes.
in our county.
You're right.
And when you say, I just feel like the state's losing the fact that not all of our counties are the same. And so it's really frustrating because that puts the burden back on the people that live in the county and, not everybody's rich that lives in this county. And I really wish that we could get people focused on that because I feel like it gets pushed down to us to make these really tough decisions on how much we're gonna have to raise taxes to make sure our teachers have a livable wage. So it's very, very frustrating that we haven't gotten more attention on that particular issue at the state level. Would love to see everyone rally around getting us that money that we put in. I think it was I can't remember what you said, we pay for 6.2% of the students and we get funding for 4.3.
Yeah, we have about 4.2, 4.3 of the total public school students in the state, and we get treated as if we have half again more than that.
That's definitely a frustrating point for me. I really hope that we can focus on that and, make sure that we're getting the money that we need to support the teachers we have in our county.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. If I may, let me give you a little bit of detail that might be something for you to take when you have those opportunities to talk. I talked about the fiscal capacity indicator. That's that formula that we're talking about that tends to separate us out. And it's a complex formula that even includes income of the individuals who live in the county. That's a fact, that's a piece of the formula, which actually has no direct impact on us. The other side of that equation is the cost differential factor, the CDF. That was in the old BEP formula where we received some funding related to the cost of living. That CDF is not being funded in TISA. So that's a nugget to keep in your mind.
And the formula's not working, that's all I know right now. It's not working for Williamson County. The second thing I wanted to bring up, and honestly, this is the one area I'm like, if we could go back to the school board and discuss the Chromebooks. I know there's been discussion around, not having the Chromebooks in elementary. And if that were the case, I know that's a $6 million, line item in your budget. Is there a potential to discuss just leasing them for a year while you come up with a policy or going back to the school board and saying, can we stick with what we have for one more year so we can really figure out what is the policy that we want to have for these Chromebooks in our elementary schools? Because I, to date, have not met one parent with kids in elementary school, and I got a lot of them in my neighborhood that like the Chromebooks. They really wish they didn't have to deal with them. It's like an extra item that they have to concern themselves with.
Yeah. Well, number one, our purchase plan for this year is not for elementary Chromebooks. We're actually projecting that purchase out in another year. Brian, I'm trying to remember, is it middle school?
No, this year's 3 through 5.
Three, okay, I
We're
apologize.
not doing K1 and 2 at all.
Yeah.
We're taking we are not assigning Chromebooks in K through 2. And the state does have computer literacy standards that we do have to meet, but we did an analysis, kind of a snapshot analysis on actual student use. And in the short term, we were eliminating those students taking those home in all elementary grades, and we're not giving a one-to-one for K-2. So we have cut that substantially. We are also creating a committee to study student screen time. And over this coming school year, we are going to be having discussions with our stakeholders, with parents, and with our educators about what we do long-term. There is a possibility in subsequent fiscal years that if there's a change, we will be able to redirect newer devices to some of those older grades, and it could affect our budget down the road.
Is there a possibility to look into? I know that the state laws have changed around leasing, but is there a possibility to look to see what the cost is for leasing for a year while you kind of work out and do these studies, and that there might be some, I'm trying to save pennies.
Sure.
That's all I'm trying to do.
We have done that analysis. Rachel, can you speak to the finance side?
Sure. We could submit again. The last time we submitted, we were denied because they felt like the interest rate that was being charged through the lease was as high, if not higher than somewhere else. We did do a smaller Apple lease, but it was a very small one for CTE that did get approved. But could we ask for it again? Yes. Would they deny us again? I don't know. It'll depend on. But even if we did the lease, it would have to be a multi-year lease. It wouldn't be just a one-year lease on the items.
I guess I'm just obviously just throwing out some possible ideas for you to discuss with the board and see what there's an appetite for. But I mean, it's 7 pennies, so it's $1.21 or 1.2.
1.8. So it comes out to be 6.77.
Okay.
We could get it to 6. Rounding,
And
partial penny would be
and
7.
then the county, so is it 34 or is it 24?
We're at, for general fund or county as a total?
County as a total.
Was it 33?
33.
Right, was what we were short
Okay.
overall for each of our funds, for the 3 funds.
So about a third of it's the schools. So yeah, I think we're scraping for ideas at this point to try and minimize. And hopefully in the end to look for some alternative revenue sources too. I mean, right now, property taxes is the easiest thing to tap into, but I'd love to see that TISA funding go up and look at some other possibilities to bring in some more revenue. But that's really all I had. Those were just the ideas. I mean, I know how much time you guys put into the budget, so I don't feel a need to overly scrutinize it.
Guess my comment is, you wanna blame the tax increase on anybody, you can blame it on the state, how they fund the county. What are the vouchers now? They're gonna give 7,300, and what are they giving us per student?
Yeah, so as we understand it, the plan is $7,295, I think, this
That's
year.
the base.
It's a 3% increase over last year's proposal. We did the math on our total funding from the state and just divided it by the number of students, and that includes students with disabilities. We actually get additional funding for them for high performance, very specific line items. We receive a little bit less than, on average, $4,400 per student.
So if we got what they got for voucher, then we wouldn't have to have a tax increase
Well,
for.
that's right.
We have surplus.
We could use it on the county part.
We build our fund balance, or, yeah.
So, can I ask a question? Well, Commissioner had a chance to ask. a question.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Can you, Rachel, tell me how many teachers are based in the Titular plan?
TISA does not work the way BEP did. So TISA is 100% based on the students, not the teachers. They're not, each position is not considered. So they're looking at the students and how they qualify. If it's being a student, or if they have unique learning needs, CTE has some pieces to it. And so they're used to, we would tell you, there's so many teachers who are not funded, it's just not done that way anymore.
I'm trying to get at this, so let me go at it a different way. With that information and the $2,000 that the state is gonna send, how much are we estimating we'll get? If it's not based on teachers,
The bonus is based on the teachers.
that's what I'm asking.
I'm sorry, I thought you said TISA. TISA is the state, is our annual funding, but the bonus is based off of those teachers.
And how
We're
many,
doing don't know yet. April, May, June, they're doing a pool each month, and then we're working through the requirements in order to receive the bonus is you have to work 121 days during the year. You have to spend 50% or more of your time in service with students. And so we are going through that. I mean,
You have to be full-time during
full-time,
that time.
has to be full-time, it can't be
So
part-time.
our FTEs in our budget include multiple part-timers. So we don't have those numbers
So we
yet.
don't have the numbers yet. They pulled and gave us the first preliminary, but there's tons of changes where there were people on there that,
what was that number?
I don't even, oh gosh. I don't know. I'll give you just say, it's probably around 3,000, but I can't say that.
3,000 estimate?
Don't quote me on that, just give me that.
Even though we are recording this.
After I said it, don't quote me on it. Think about that.
Well, while you're looking that up, Madam Chairman, what I'm looking at is, according to Jason, he doesn't know of a restriction against the planning money. We know that money will not come in before July 1. I mean, that's a given.
That's right.
So if you got that number, then we can effectively reduce the number of, because you can't do that.
If that money, when we're not supposed to, well, we were not supposed to budget for it at all until we actually receive. And then it's just gonna be a wash, it's an in and an out. So when we do budget for it, you would be budgeting revenue and expenses. So there would be no gain to budgeting just the revenue, we would have to budget the expenses along with it.
But the difference is that money goes directly to you. This body of 24 county commissioners does not have any say-so on it. So the only way that we can attack or look at this is on the front end. So let me give you an example. Let's say we approve your budget, and that you're saying the 4% represents 12 million. I'm just rounding off here. Phoebe's telling me that's 6 or 7 pennies. If your number was correct, even UT math, I can figure that one, 2,000 times 3,000, how much money that is. Once that money comes to you, county commissioner has no say-so over that money, because that'll go directly to you all.
It will come to us, we'll bring it back to you in a resolution with the revenue and expenses.
That
But in
is
order to
correct.
receive it, we are committing that it will be used only for the
That is-
bonuses.
That is correct. But the commission will not have any, they could not accept the money. They're not going, let me put it this way, they're not gonna reject receiving money from the state, but they can't adjust the budget that we're doing this year, and which will affect the tax rate on July 1. So you're getting money for the teachers, don't have a problem with that. We're all wanting our teachers like our law enforcement. But it sounds like we're gonna get a 2,000 per, or whatever that formula is, on 2,000 teachers. We'd like for them to have it, but at the same time, I hate to have a tax increase for them to get another bonus on top of that, because none of our other employees are getting that either.
Mayor, you're right about that. Now, that $2,000 bonus was tied in to the,
To be sure, there were 50,000, and we funded that last year.
well, no, it wasn't tied into the 50,000.
No, you're correct.
Yeah.
The governor came out, the legislators approved, they wanted all teachers to be at 50,000 minimum base starting salary.
Yeah.
This commission, those that voted for the budget, now there were some that didn't vote for the budget, voted against
Yeah.
the budget, which in essence was not funding those 2,000, but we had over 13 votes. So
Yeah.
all of those teachers got a $2,000 pop to be sure to get them to 50,000 this year.
That's right. You all voted on that to bring it up based on the governor's standard. And we were 1 year ahead of.
That's correct.
That's right. Yeah. What, that $2,000 bonus for the teachers with that detail that Rachel talked about, that was tied to the ESA voucher legislation. I can't know what every particular voter at the legislature was motivated by, but it appeared to me that it was tied there because it would affect the votes of the legislators across the state to approve the ESA.
There's a play out, Jason, called, they say in it, potato, potato.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where I am on it, I want the teachers to get a 4%, but I also want our counties to get 4%. This commission has gone to great lengths to pay our teachers very good, but it's time to belly up to the bar. We've done the same thing with our law enforcement. We have done the same thing since December to be sure that our people, our law enforcement community, gets at least 4%, and some of them are getting substantially more than that, Madam Chairman. I know we've got to put this to bed, but next week, Monday, is that when we meet? Yeah, next Monday, it's the second reading if we can't get this done. I would like to request they make an all-out attempt to find, or at least surround their arms with a number that we can adjust accordingly here. Since and find out if supplanting is not allowed, then I need to know that. But this way, the teachers will not be hurt. They would get their money, unless you all want to vote for a tax increase and then give them 2,000 more, which is kind of stretching the envelope a little bit, I think. That's hard to sell out in the community. Mm-hmm. But Judy's right, and we all know it. The actions of the state have put us in a pickle. Now, there's been some conversation I've heard from county commission to delay it to January. That doesn't help us with our employees. It doesn't help us with school employees. It doesn't do a thing, except it delays it for 6 months. But I am all for getting our employees money. Now, I can go into your budget, I can cut out Chromebooks, we can do all these things you want to do, but at the end of the day, we need to be paying our teachers. We've locked down on our insurance premiums. Now, we gotta go through the P&I again, but we will not have an increase on our P&I this year. We're comfortable with that. And you can debate it and say, well, let's go back to school board and get all that. At the end of the day, all this committee does is give a recommendation, get it off and get it on to the county commission. And if the education committee doesn't have the backbone to vote for it, this committee has got to vote for something. I don't know why they didn't vote on it last night. That's beyond my, that's what they were called to do. If they don't want to vote on it, this committee has to vote on it, or you're going to have an all-day war in the county commission at the time we have to set the budget, because we can't come to an agreement, ladies and gentlemen. We just start at the top and we start taking out things that you put in, and those aren't going to be very pleasing, because schools have already cut their budget 30 some odd positions. So I will make a suggestion while you put that around. I don't think we voted for the
We didn't vote for the cafeteria.
cafeteria. We could address those, because that's pretty much covered their own money, and get that off the schedule. Now,
To answer your question, there was 3,404 on the list, and we know a lot of those don't qualify because they're not going to work 121 days. 404. So we were estimating 400 to 500.
so if you just dropped it to 3,000, which you didn't want me to quote, times $2,000,
I wanted to
I mean,
double check.
that's some real walking around money.
Well, and Mr. Mayor, just a couple of reminders related to that. The plan is to give a bonus to this year's teachers in next year. That will include some retirees. That will include some who have resigned and moved elsewhere, who we're actually going to have to pay later. It is not a plan from the state to pay
next year's teachers?
We have a couple of things too. Part of TISA, part of the funding, we have not received this yet either, is they will give you X amount of dollars of TISA. It's supposed to go towards an increase in teacher pay in trying to increase those levels. And so the last couple of years it's not been an issue because through the raises we were able to cover that. If you treat the $2,000, that's not gonna come through funding, that's coming from the state, so I don't know that we would get there. Another thing to remember is that $2,000 is going to every teacher in the state, and people are not treating that as a raise. So in order for us to continue to, we finally are at a place where we are equal to start hiring with Rutherford County, but we're behind others. By year 5, we're still behind, so if we don't give them additional funding, every teacher that meets the requirements are getting those funds. By not doing an additional raise on that, then we're just gonna drop right back where we were, which was behind all of our peers around us.
I don't think, Madam Chairman, I'll speak through you. I don't think there's a single county commissioner. We will have our difference on politics. We'll have our difference on different items, but I don't know of a single county commissioner that's against paying Williamson County teachers and Williamson County employees. It's how much of the taxes do we have to raise to accomplish that? So that was my comment through you to them as I was tearing them down. But it's interesting that you bring up the funding model, and it is interesting we see how much one organization is gonna get 7,000 plus, and we're gonna get 40, what'd you say? $4,400. And that's a hard pill.
So Mary, you're trying to find money, go up to the state, ask them for our fair share.
Oh, we all have.
I think we need a campaign, to make things happen, but
Unfortunately, they don't go back into session till February.
doesn't help us this year, does it?
But anyway, Madam Chairman, going on to the cafeteria fund, I'll make a motion to get this, if they don't want to do it, or if you've got any other questions on the general operation.
I have one more comment, but
I guess I probably have, would be a comment and maybe a question. I'm not putting this completely on your shoulders, but how, were you aware of, or our school board aware of the push from the county, I think Superintendent's Association and the school boards about HB 348, maintenance of effort? It almost passed. It almost slipped by everybody. And the only reason it didn't is it passed in the Senate, but didn't pass in the House, and which would have put the schools ahead of everybody else. The mayors, the sheriff, the mayor's office, the sheriff, the roads and everything else. When I saw that, because I thought it was going to pass, and then it didn't come out of the last committee. And I'd really like to see a commitment from our school board and from you to not support stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because when I saw that, the first thing I thought about, that's fine, and then get last year's budget. That's it. And y'all deal with it. Because there's two ways to play those games, and that was getting played against the counties. And that would have been, or could have been a real problem for us. And, I guess it would have been like, well, there's nothing that we can do about it. Because I think it's really important that our citizens, that's why I say some things in here so people watching at home, the county commission, and I know everybody in here knows this, but the county commission doesn't have any say other than yes or no. I mean, that's it. That's all we have. But as soon as we say, we start pushing back, we'll get 6,000 emails that we don't support the teachers. And I'd really like to know who's behind that push, because I don't know it's just the teachers union and doing that stuff. Yeah. That's putting unfair pressure on us because we can't chop in there and do anything about that. Yeah. And, there's certain things, I get told all kinds of stuff from different people. I take some of it with a grain of salt, but about how money's spent and how things are bought and then just sat over here and not used and stuff like that. I'm not saying that I know that's true, but I hear enough stuff that you're like, well, maybe some of it's true. And it's just, it's, you know, it's really important that the school board doesn't get it's easy for them. I know they do a good job and they've got a hard job going through stuff, but it's easy for them to say, we passed it, and then put the political heat back on the county commission and the mayor's office.
Thank you for that. I see what you're saying with that last comment. To your earlier comment about a particular House bill, Senate bill, I don't know that particular number, but if I am aware of one bill that in essence would have created the capacity for school boards to have an available capital fund. Neither I nor our board were involved in any political push on any of those items. I will tell you my reaction, if that's the bill you're talking about, my reaction was, well, if that happened, then it would just affect our funding from the commission. And I didn't see any practical impact for that. What I did hear some piece about some rural districts talking about that for them to do capital improvements to their buildings. That's the bit I heard, if that's the one you're talking about.
And I may not be saying it exactly, I'm sure the mayor may have heard about it there, and because it kind of got one of some radars until the last minute, and it was basically we would not be allowed to ever go under the last one, and would have them, and if there was some kind of budget. And I think that's kind of the case anyway.
Yeah.
But if there was a shortfall, we couldn't fund anything else until we funded the schools. And that's the one thing that we have the least say on.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I will say our board has not taken positions this year on particular bills. There have been times in the past where the board has evaluated that, but this year they did not do that. We have spent some time talking to our legislators about funding, the TISA issues, et cetera. Now, about the messaging, all our board meetings are public and they're recorded. Certainly encourage you to look at that. We know, and I've been working through this now, I'm in my 20th budget year with WCS. We've been working through this knowing that we're all on the same team. So I want you to know that from a philosophical standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, that's what we talk about. You all make funding decisions, and you do more than most counties, largely because of state structure, right? And so we very much appreciate that.
I have one last comment, Madam Chair. I think there's one other area too that I know this year it's kind of gotten past us and it's almost too late, but I have heard from, many teachers with regards to the insurance plan that we have. There's been big, huge interest in more options with regards to insurance. And so this year, I know the insurance committee hasn't met yet, but I don't think we're going to probably not much of a possibility of changing it. But I do think that is an area that I would like to support the teachers on in, looking at what are our insurance options. Are there cost savings there or not? I don't know. I don't think we have the information to really know that for sure. It's an area I wish we had more time this past budget year to look into. But that is something too that I would really like to get support from the commission and with y'all to make sure the teachers are happy, with that insurance plan and with the choices that they're being given, because I know it can impact their out-of-pocket costs too. And at the end of the day, I want to make sure teachers have as much take-home with them as they possibly can have.
Yeah, I will tell you, related to insurance, what I hear most often is back in 2009, there was a change for new hires. The folks are grandfathered in. At the state level, with the state insurance plan, if I'm not mistaken, in 2014, they made that same shift that county government made. So some of those, I don't know, I may be using the wrong terms, legacy plans that give a retiree the capacity to maintain insurance, it's not available at the state level anymore either. So we've had that discussion for new hires, and that may be that.
They still offer it. I mean, I looked at the state site and they still have the retiree premiums up there, so I don't,
Yeah,
you can still.
I think it's for those who entered They were grandfathered in prior to 2014.
Is it? I don't.
We'll double check that.
Double check, because
Yeah.
I thought it said, if you'd only worked for 10 years or so, and,
Yeah.
that would be,
Yeah, we'll double check that. And of course, we haven't studied the state plan in depth because we've been on the county plan, but we'll double check that.
well, and I also heard, this was just the rumor, that supposedly Scottsdale or Arizona has developed some other sort of insurance plan too, and that's something that I know has been presented to Governor Lee to look into. That was another cost-saving measurement when it comes, because insurance is, that's a big ticket item.
Yeah.
It's like, you can put more money in somebody's pocket and it doesn't cost them so much, cost the county so much to provide those benefits, then I think that's a win-win if the services are good and what it covers is appropriate.
Yeah.
But that's another area I feel like, we can still continue to investigate.
I think all the county employees that are working would love, that started since 2009, would love to have the insurance when they retire, but it would cost the county an absolute fortune, wouldn't it, Mayor?
Well, it's not really when they retire. It's that bridge, if they want to retire at 55 and beyond. The old plan that Jason's talking about, that when they had, I'll have to get somebody in this room that's got 30 years, I think it'd be Diane. If you had the age of 55, if you were at 55 and 30,
55 and 10 or 30 years of experience.
there you go, then you could retire at 55. Then there was insurance that would carry you to 65 at that time. Now it's about 66 or 67. So that's a Gadsby thing that Phoebe has to, and her predecessor, we have to book that liability on the books for those people that may or may not retire, but we have to book it on the books for those people. So in 08, 09, the commission at that time said, it was an astronomical number. It was $200,000 or $300,000 every year going forward. And they voted, no, if you're under the old plan, you stay on it. So that liability has gone less and less each year. But all new hires, you had to work to the age of retirement, whatever that age had to be, and then you could retire. Kind of like the commercial world works.
But you couldn't get the county, you could take the county insurance when you retire if you started after 2009, right?
No, you can retire now. Our plan allows you to retire, and we have retirees on our plan.
I thought
But
it,
you can't stay on the plan if you were hired after 09.
That's correct.
that's what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, Madam Chairman, I don't know if
another
there's more discussions here, but I do
Wanna
think
do the
we can do those
cafeteria
two. We can do the cafeteria and the Capitol.
Yes,
Am I allowed to make a comment?
yes, you
Do
can.
I have to go to the microphone? Good.
We do need that.
All right. I got a question. So Madam Chair, the question about the bonuses that Mr. Golden brought up. I have two questions about that. Calculation roughly $6 million. It's going to come in after the budget, right? Okay, but you said $2,000 per teacher, all the criteria you've got to meet. Who's going to pay the FICA and the workers' comp percentage?
We've got some basic information from the state related to that.
They're basically for each one, they'll give you 2,316, I think is the total, which covers the retirement and Social Security and Medicare. So they will,
So the only thing we're
they're
gonna be
covering
out
the employer portion of those taxes.
would probably be to the insurance would be workers' comp. So we're gonna be out just a little bit. If it's based on salary, workers' comp based on salary. So they're gonna pay the FICA and the retirement. Okay, well, good, because I was concerned about that. You said 2,000.
I said gross, so it's actually not total gross, the most recent information we've had.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, the state is going to fund that to cover. So the gross for them is still $2,000, but it's our portion, the employer portion that they're covering.
Yeah, they're giving the teacher 2,000 and then
Correct.
they're gonna put an extra in there.
That's right.
So the other part, and this may be, Rachel, you or Phoebe tell me, if we don't know that number until the budget is passed, let's say July 1st, aren't we under some comptroller or legislative guidelines to have that number before we pass a budget?
So that's why they're doing the data pulls. We're supposed to get more information back. When the Department of Education actually talked to us about it, they had not spoken with the comptroller yet on whether or not to book it now and this year, because technically their take on it was you can't book it because it's next year's funding. So it's really not there on the state level to fund yet, even though it's based off of past service. So there's a lot of discussion about how to do that, and the comptroller's office is supposed to be
We
giving
don't
that.
know yet.
Correct.
I'll just weigh in. I think Commissioner O'Neill understands this on his retirement. We're talking about insurance. If he was on before 2009, so he had the bridge. And so you're talking about if you were hired after that particular date, then you didn't get it. Brentwood had the same issue. You had to be on board because I was one of the few that was on that guideline. So I remember looking at that seriously about 15 years ago. And then Commissioner Smith brought up this, Madam Chair, the fair and equal thing that I beat to death. I'm just looking at it again today, and you know, there are 8 school districts, 2 of them Williamson County, that have more than 50% that they have to pay. Franklin Special, 72.34% in this state table that I have, issued by the State Department of Education. And to be fair and equitable, you know, 1% more from the state would be almost $6 million to us. Whoa. But yet the state, and I've talked to our legislatures, I have sent this to some of our legislatures, and they tell me they'll work on it. I think we need to put a full court press, knowing that would affect the rural commissioners, but fair and equitable. If we think about fair and equitable, we've got counties that have the resources around Middle Tennessee, Wilson, and Rutherford. I mean, Rutherford's 39% that they pay locally compared to our 64%. And that, as you on the county commission know, really gnaws at me. And so I think if we just went down to 54% that we paid locally, which is still a high number, we would have somewhere between $30 and $50 million more than you calculated. What could we do with that every year? We could build a new school for cash. It's just amazing.
And not have a tax increase.
And all kinds of things, but just wanted to get that in. My real question is about the $6 million. Thank you.
And as I said, when we do a tax increase, we can thank the state for that. Okay, we're going to the cafeteria fund. Mayor, can I get a motion on the cafeteria?
Motion.
Second. This is for the cafeteria of
20 million. I think it's 20,827,302. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
20,827,302.
Does anybody have any questions on the cafeteria?
Central cafeteria? Yes.
Yes. Is this what?
Central cafeteria.
Yeah.
Outside of the budget.
It's self-funded.
Yep. Good.
Any questions? Ready to vote on the budget for the cafeteria of $20,827,302. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Passes 4-0. Next is the extended school program fund that is self-funded. 2. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Are there any questions on that?
Sure, it's the same number, 8,077,174. Is that what you're showing?
Yes, sir. 8,077,174.
Ready to vote on that? All in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody against? Passes 4-0. Do we want to even get close to the capital request of 14 million? That's just part of it.
That's just.
Because you've done a separate resolution for others.
Yes, Madam Chair. We had that discussion with you all. We have our 5-year capital plan and TIF funds, and so based on the discussion we had, we brought them all to you so that you see the total that we project for repairs and safety expenses for this coming year.
What is the amount of the resolution for like the parking lots and air conditioners and?
$12,153,000.
So
basically 26 million for your capital, what you're asking.
12,153 is the 5-year capital for asphalt roofing and HVAC. 13 million is 5-year capital for this technology security. And then this is the annual capital request that's in the budget document.
Yeah, 40 million in it. Wow, y'all want a lot, don't you?
Well, we do have about 50 campuses, and we do have a substantial need every year. If you just visualize a roof alone,
That's close to $1 million campus.
But maybe I'm missing something. I thought we were only voting on the educational capital projects of 14 million.
That's correct.
And you're talking about the other 12 million that's,
A resolution, isn't that in a resolution?
After last year's meeting, the request was to go ahead and pull these, and so we brought them before the board already to vote. So the budget committee will have them, assuming next week at your
but
schedule.
those will be intent to fund,
that
Correct,
is correct.
correct.
which is kind of we had a wrestling going on last year on this.
Right.
But I think tonight, all you're voting on is 14 million. 135, 800, whatever it is.
And aren't you asking for remodeling on Grassland and Millsburg?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Which one's that one in?
That is in our monthly monthly items that are in separate intent to funds. Our board voted this month on 2 intent to funds for some remodeling projects. Again, based on the discussions we had, to make sure that you all see what we project out for this coming year. One of them is a renovation project at Hillsborough, and then another one is a renovation project at Grassland Mill that were on our 5-year capital plan.
Does anybody have any questions about this capital fund? Do we even want to vote on that yet? We want to wait.
I mean, my comment is, when the intent to fund comes, you need to make up your mind, do you want to fund intent to fund resolutions? These are the capital things there. This school board and two staff have said they need, a lot of these are for roofs, heating and air conditioning, safety, plumbing, structural. I mean, this numbers on, what did we do last year? I should have looked that up before it came in.
13,155.
Yeah, I mean, they're within what we did last year. I mean, for the last several years, we've asked them to stay in those same numbers. You might have gone up 1% this year. But I'm okay. We're gonna have to borrow some money, take this out if we go to a bond, if we can't roll it around some way. That's not gonna go down unless you make a motion to take it down. And I don't know if you.
Vehicles, what are these vehicles for?
Maintenance replacements.
They have tons of vehicles that are on
I see them
recycle.
all around.
Yeah. And so they're
How
all over
many
the place.
vehicles is this covering?
Probably 10, about 50,000 apiece.
Yeah.
Ain't my vehicle.
Maintenance and then a box truck.
Nissan Aria is really cheap right now.
Do what?
That's good, you can get a Nissan Aria really cheap right now.
It's a box truck.
I don't know if the plumbing was quick enough to carry that.
I'm just saying.
A box truck, a mini excavator, and then 6.
Just regular maintenance.
What is the mini excavator for that y'all do?
Oh, we use, yeah.
Water line.
Yeah.
I didn't know y'all do that, y'all don't.
Normally, they've been
Contract
doing
it
that,
out.
they've tried to lease, but they just keep leasing in the cost of the lease in order to
Yeah,
get it
yeah.
in.
It depends on the size of the project, but I mean, we'll do as much as we can, absolutely.
Commissioner Smith, is there anything you'd like to cut?
Oh, Lord. I mean, you gotta take care of the schools, right? I mean, you can't let them fall apart. I mean, that's, I'm sure this wasn't probably what you originally came up with.
No, ma'am, actually, well, so the annual capital is all the maintenance based on their end of the year inspections and stuff that's needed. And then there's some requests from schools that we filter through with the assistant superintendent of elementary and high school. And then we go with Mr. Golden and we cut that list down. The original was about 50 million.
So with 30
We're not
million.
we're not gonna bring that to you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And
That's a
when
good
you're
thing.
bringing 14 to us, you know,
Right.
I know that that's not everything.
That's what I'm saying, we
on the
cut a
wish list.
we cut a lot of stuff, requests out from the school. There are legitimate requests. They're, you know, they're not,
I know that I went out to Sunset Middle,
Right.
met the principal out there, and she's working on a grant to
exactly.
do some of the things that she wants to do out there, which I really appreciate. I told her several times how much I appreciate the work she's putting in
Exactly.
to do that, to save,
Yes, ma'am.
you know, save money. So I know the teachers and the principals are doing all they can. And then the $14 million that the parents and the PTOs and the boosters contribute. So
Sure.
it's a very generous ecosystem,
Yes,
you know, that we have at the school. So I don't really see anything specifically on this. I think the only thing that I had a question about, it's not on this one. I know that there's the security one, 13 million, I think, for Bob's. But overall, I think when we look at all of our incentive funds and our bonds, I think we're just trying to put some guardrails around hopefully seeing our debt service go down, because that went up 15 million this year. So we just had a lot go up, not a whole lot stay even.
And to Mr. Anderson, Mayor Anderson, we did try to stay.
What was
So-
last year again?
It was 13
13
million
million,
something.
155, 596.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to adjust this to the amount it was last year.
Anyone second it?
I'm not opposed to seconding, I wanna, is it doable? I mean, you know, are we gonna get 100 emails that we don't care about teachers because that's the only place they can be cut at their raises?
So this
This is just the capital,
This is capital.
just this capital, right?
So there will be a project that will have, several projects.
We'll have to prioritize if
So there'll be some projects that get cut.
I'm second.
Discussion.
I mean, I would, before I would vote on that, I'd want to know exactly what y'all would have to cut and what the impact would be.
Yeah.
Before, I mean, I don't feel, I'm all about, you know, like I said, saving pennies. And I think there's been several recommendations that have been made. And I know how hard y'all work. I just don't want to see our school buildings fall apart either.
I can't answer that question right now. I will tell you the process we'd go through. We'd go through each of the projects with this basic theme in mind, that old saying of schedule maintenance or it will schedule itself for you, right? And we'd work on that theme. What can we wait on, right? So it would take our administrative team and our maintenance folks to get together to make that decision if it got cut to 13.
So I'm definitely not against the cut. I just kind of need to know what that impact would look like from their side.
I won't be able to answer that.
You know, my whole thing is, we know everything's expensive. Everybody wants a raise. Everybody deserves a raise to the county. And you've got to cut something. You either got to raise taxes or you got to cut. And that's the way it is. And I guess I get real aggravated when we go through these budgets and nobody makes a cut, and then you get to the end, well, we don't want a tax. So they vote against a tax increase knowing that it's going to pass because the people that do the right thing vote for the tax increase to make sure everything's funded. So there's no money coming out of the sky. It's either a tax increase and the commissioners to stand up and do the right thing and vote for the tax increase for the things we need, or cut the budget. That's your only two choices. I guess, and I was just trying to cut it some So we wouldn't have as much of a tax increase.
Well, can I play off your words without hurting your feelings?
Yes, you can, because you know I don't speak as well as you do.
$1 million
It's nothing in the
It's-
scheme of things.
It's not
I know.
even a half a penny,
I know.
but.
I mean, it's a lot of money to me.
I get that. So can I ask us to do some investigating? It'll take a little time and maybe we can get it handled by next week between Diane and Phoebe and myself. I would like to revisit Phoebe and Diane before we vote on this. Is there any way that legal would let us do some educational impact fee towards these capital costs?
Possibly.
And if that's the case, Madam Chairman, I mean, that's the procedure you all are gonna have to have. It has, whether you do 14 million or what was the number, 13 million something?
Right.
Jamie needs that for the records anyway. What was it, 13 million?
Last year, yes.
I'm sorry, 13,155,596.
So, I mean, it's the mechanism, it's the vehicle we use to get it done. It's not the amount. But if we could get legal comfortable.
It depends on the use and the purpose.
Yeah.
Again, we would have to make sure that we were justifying that it was due to growth. If you recall, a few months back, we did some bus.
Right.
And we did through education, because that was growth to that special education program. And the growth of the program required us to legally fit within the growth aspect. So that would depend on.
Yeah, and that's what's making me think, Jason, if there was a way that you and Brian could tie it to growth so that we could use these funds that we've, have secured money for growth, that would help us. Now, that's not in your general formula.
That, you're right, it's not, but, and I don't know, I don't know the rules related to the impact fee. Obviously, you'll have to take that question. I don't know if it's to bond counsel or to.
There's probably just several of them.
Yes. What we can get for you is every single school and our student enrollment projections at those schools. In other words, every school where a project is being done and enrollment at that school. And that might give some facts that they can evaluate. If a particular school had growth, might they tie that project into that? Largely, these are maintenance projects, but there may be some exceptions. We can get that data to you.
Well, the money's sitting out there. It's accumulated over the past 8 to 10 years. We've used it to pay our debt on, and it's another source for us to need to go back to the well and figure out. And I know you're willing to do the exercise because it could make a difference on your funding, which frees up more money for teachers' pay.
In the motion, fail for lack of second.
Well, she hadn't asked for the motion. I didn't know if she was gonna withdraw it or.
I'll just withdraw it and let it study more. But, the only thing else, I think y'all have tried to do a good budget. This is my question. If we got less students, what about the administrative up there? Are there any employees? Can you cut any employees up there? I get complaints it's top heavy.
Yeah, well, I will say to that last point.
That's probably not a good word on Jason at 6'10".
Yeah, and I'm not top heavy, but I will say we run lean compared to a lot of our neighbors. We've done that analysis. We have looked at those positions, and Rachel, I can't remember off the top of my head. We've got that in our position control report. What we do know is, from an administrative standpoint, the 0.44 change that we're projecting is so scattered that we can't remove a particular service position. That's part of our challenge.
I got another one I get a complaint on. Attorney fees. Why are we paying Attorney Bobby Cook money to go to school board meetings? Why an attorney that we have hired handling the school board meetings?
We've had those discussions with board leadership, when we asked Mr. Cook to come. Ms. Osbrooks represents Williamson County Schools as an entity, and Mr. Cook is giving advice to the political entity that is the Board of Education.
He's more the parliamentary type.
That's right.
He kind of directs the traffic on that evening.
How much do we pay him out of the school budget? Do you have a figure just for him?
I don't know.
He's an excellent attorney. I just hate to see too, and then I know we pay attorneys for all of our, how many lawsuits have we had this year?
Don't know the answer off the top of my head. We do use the county attorneys for liability claims. And then we do have some special ed claims from time to time that we do need attorneys for.
The special attorneys.
Special ed, that's correct.
Have we had many lately?
I don't have any numbers on that, but we have a few thousand students with disabilities, and so most all the time there will be what they're called due process cases. They're administrative law cases. They're not the jury trials in court. They're a little bit different. But most all the time with a few thousand students with disabilities, we will have some. I don't have that number off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I can get that to you.
But I assume you've gone through each item and seen if there's anything you can cut. Like if you could cut attorney hours, you've looked at every dollar you can.
Yes, we have, and we started from scratch this year, started from base. We didn't say, let's start from where we are and work our way down. We have done that.
Okay.
Two things. One, officially, I withdraw my second.
Oh, I think I withdraw my first.
So I just want to say that for the record. And the other thing, because I want to make sure, if I could do something, a magic wand, give the teachers a 20% raise, I'd be the first one to do it. I know they deserve it.
Yeah.
100%. I don't want anybody to think that, they deserve it all day long. So it just, we don't have a magic wand.
And we appreciate that. What I talk about often is we want to maintain a livable professional wage for our teachers, and that takes constant attention. And to Commissioner Smith's comment earlier about cost of living, we feel that too, right?
But also we need living wages for cafeteria workers,
That's right.
bus drivers, secretaries, bookkeepers. I mean,
That's right.
everybody
Yeah.
works hard. It can't function without everybody working together.
You're exactly right. And so we look at market and we look at that baseline of cost of living.
Based on what you had said earlier, Madam Chair, I know you cut, what was it, 35?
31.6.
Yes.
34.6 positions. So if you hadn't cut those 34.6 positions, probably been looking at much larger.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
So it wasn't really about positions, it's just getting the raises. I mean, if you had to like boil it down, I think you boiled it down pretty well in your letter. We got the Chromebooks, we got the raises. Those are really the two big items, that we're looking at and trying to get our teachers. And I think we added a couple days off too, to try and, build up that ability. I mean, to me, it just comes down to putting pressure on the state. I think that's really the key here. 2% would have covered?
Commissioner Webb?
2% would have
Put
covered
pressure
it.
out of state for years to try to get them to get us more money?
What? Sorry, I was looking at the legal thing.
I said, are you putting pressure on the state to try to get us more money? Haven't you been on that for years?
Well, yeah, I keep sending them this stuff, and I encourage my county commissioners from around the state, but when I go to the rural commissioners, they just say, man, it's tough. So I don't get a lot of support from the rural legislators, so it's hard on our delegation, I understand that, but, you gotta keep it in front of them.
I think what upsets me is like all the counties around us, we employ a lot of those people. And if we lost a lot of the jobs, those counties would be hurting too. They should be supporting our counties because we're supporting half the residents in their counties.
All politics is local, Madam Chair.
Might as well vote on the capital. Just go.
Okay.
Diane, just inform you, you've got, next Monday night, you've got 40 resolutions. And now you're gonna get the school operational side on top of that, so be prepared for a long evening.
Plus all the other capital.
Plus our capital.
Yeah, and plus county's capital, so.
I don't know how many of those 40, if they all come to budget, but that's how many we've got filed.
It's gonna be a long meeting, Madam Chairman.
Does somebody want to do a motion to get the capital for the school?
I'll make a motion.
Anybody want a second?
This is for the 14th.
Yes. Second.
Is any more questions about it? Like we said, what's in this? And if you got in there, if you can save some money, fine, we'd really appreciate if you could find something a little cheaper. A little cheaper.
I will do my best,
All right.
absolutely.
Is everybody ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Passes 4-0. I guess we're gonna hold off on.
Well, if we get some answers, I think it'll move a lot quicker if Rachel's able to get a few of those answers. And then Phoebe and get with bond counsel,
See what we can-
we can adjust the mechanism of which vehicle we drive to get the finished product.
Any more questions? Issue, can I get a move to adjourn?
Mr. Jones?